Hey guys, we're going to do a couple of life skills videos. Our first one we're going to do is how to sew on a button. So what we've got here is I've got some lovely green thread for our 4H. Scissors, of course. I'm going to show you on just a little piece of fabric. You're going to need your needle anytime you sew on a button, and of course a button. I happen to have a jar of buttons, so we're going to pick one out and we'll show you some different ways to sew on a button. Okay, so there are different kinds of buttons. You have the ones with what's called a shank, and you can kind of see that it has a loop here. Then of course you have your regular buttons, and they come in either with the 4 holes or 2 holes. And so I'll show you how to do a little bit with each of those. So we're going to stop and get really close to, actually, so you can see my hands and my sewing, so that it's a whole lot easier for you. Okay, so first things first, you want to thread your needle. That takes some effort. It might take you a little while. Once again, think about you're learning to use muscles in your fingers. So knowing how to do your hand-eye coordination and use your finger muscles is important. Easy way to make a knot at the end of your thread, because of course you're going to want one. I'm going to pinch my thread between my thumb and my finger. I'm going to set my needle at the very end where I'm wanting that knot. So you can see I pinched the thread between my finger and that needle. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to wrap the thread 2-3 times around. Scoot it all together so I pinch it again. So you can see that it's nice and pinched. I'm going to pull the thread and needle out. And I have created a knot that's not going to go through. Picking your thread and your needle is important because you don't want it to go through too big of a hole. So let's start with how to sew on a button with 4 holes, just like that. I'm going to come under. Can you see it? You want to make sure on a shirt or on pants, it's going to be more important that you find the exact spot. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up through one hole, down through the other, making sure I don't pull on that knot. And then I'm going to cross over . Oh, I went up the first hole again. You can do this one of 2 ways. So you can go up, finish up on one side, you want to do about 3 stitches through your 2 holes. So most of the time you're going to do side by side or parallel stitches. So 1, 2, 3, making sure I've got it nice, and I don't want it too loose, but I don't want it too tight, so I'm not going to pull it too heavily. My last time up, I'm going to pick one of the holes, go up, I'm going to go down, but I'm not going to go back through the fabric just yet. So you see I've come out through that hole. Now, when you button something, you need a little extra space so that the fabric will fit and sit nicely rather than pull. So I'm going to wrap this around 3 times, and then I'm going to go back down into the fabric. And my thread's gotten knotted back here, and most people aren't going to see that. So then I'm going to kind of go through my thread, and once again I'm going to do that same knot. So I'm pinching through, wrap 2-3 times around, and pull through so it's tight. And that sews on a 4-hole needle, 4-hole button. So now we're going to do that same thing but with a two hole needle, 2-hole button. So once again, I'm going to knot my thread, pinch it between my fingers, and it's just as easy, but it's just a bit different. You know, it's just the first part only. So it's just 1, 2, up and down through the holes. And I don't want it too tight, but not too loose either, because that button is going to hold your clothes together so that they stay on you correctly. So 1, 2, and on this time, I'm going to do that same thing where I don't go quite through the fabric just yet, but I'm going to wrap it once, twice, we'll say 3 times. 3 seems to be a, you know, magic number for sewing on buttons. Okay, so there's our second button. Now we're just going to knot the back, and you can see that this time it's a lot smoother in the back. So it's just kind of how you do it, and sometimes this takes practice to get a nice finish. The knot, again, it's a nice easy way to do a knot. That way you don't have to sit there and try and get one knot on top of the other. Okay, final one. One more time through the knot. Pinch it. Wrap it around 2, 3 times. You don't need a real big knot, especially if you're using a nice small needle like I have here. So we're going to do one button with the shank on the back rather than the holes. So that's going to be a tiny bit different. We're going to come up, but because it already has that shank that's going to give us that extra space, all I'm going to do is sew through that so I can hold the shank down to the fabric rather than the button itself. So I'm just going to do about 2, 3 times through, 2, 3 times through the shank of the buttonhole, the shank of the button. You also have to be careful that it doesn't hook on other buttons. This one's a little different, so I'm going to actually hook it through the back of the fabric so that I have a nice sturdy knot in this one too. Don't want other threads to knot on us. Sometimes that happens. We'll just work that through, figure out which of those. There it is, that's our thread. We're just going to pull it through. Cut our edge, and there's our buttons all set and ready to go.